Welcome to the Haunted Library. Today I'm going to be reading 1024. So gather around, my little darlings. Book, come now, come. "1024. Lightning flashed against the black sky. Purple streaks raced through the clouds. The barren land stretched on, a towering gate blocking her view of the great mountain. Pulling her knees into her chest, she hugged them tighter. Come on, it's almost time for lights out. I'm coming, she called, hopping off the windowsill, padding over to the hastily thrown together bunk beds, swinging onto her mat. She rolled over to her side. It's almost graduation day. Have you given any thought? The rickety wooden door swung open, bouncing off the wall, silencing her. Now, 1024, that is no talk for bedtime, the governess replied, pulling the threadbare blanket over 1045. You girls need your sleep. It's a big day tomorrow. Blowing out the white taper candle, her eyebrows scrunched together. Best light this candle later in the coming days. You're going to run out before stock day. The governess latched the door softly behind her. I told you it was too soon, 1016, 1045 said, kicking the covers off. It's too hot in here. It's not my fault. Zero asked me to. She's afraid of the dark, you know. I am not. It's just the screaming was really bad today, she whispered from her mat. Dragging herself across the floor, she propped herself up on her elbows. So, 1045, have you made up your mind? She asked again in hushed tones. I'm going to the mines, she said matter of fact, eyes glued to the ceiling. No way. Really? Zero asked, hand covering her mouth. Hell yeah. No way I would go to a fodder family. You know how babies are made, right? I'm not letting him put his prick anywhere near me. I mean, you and 1016 try awfully hard to make babies, 1038 said, giggling. Oh, piss off, she snorted. Where did you decide to go? Fodder family, 1038 said courtly. It has to be better than the mines. We're not scared. I'll be there to protect her, she said, climbing into the bunk with 1045. Scooting in close, she pulled up the blankets. What about you? 1045 asked, curling into 1016's back and kissing her shoulder. I'm not sure. I want to see it. The mines, I mean. I want to know what it's like in there. I need to know it's better than being paired off to have babies. Pulling on a thread sticking out of her blanket, 1024 let out a heavy sigh. At least you get a choice, Zero said, relaxing into the floor. Silence hung in the air. What did the governess tell you? 1016 whispered, squeezing 1038's hand under the covers. That I'm not fit for the mines, so I'd better pray my womb works better than my legs. A tear slid down her dirty cheek. Since we will never see each other after tomorrow, what did happen to your legs? 1045 asked, grunting as 1016 elbowed her in the gut. It's okay. Really. I'm surprised it took you so long to ask. When this moon first started being developed, they brought vitamins to help with pregnancy. A lot of babies died before they could breathe, but the vitamins weren't safe. So, I was born with Liana's syndrome, so my legs are all twisty. When the rations got smaller, my mother took me to the orphanage. I'm not sure I'll be allowed to stay in the HAI facilities. If my womb doesn't work, I might get thrown down a mine shaft. I didn't even get an actual number. Turning over on her stomach, she pulled herself back across the floor. Into her bunk, she pulled the cover over her head. Zero's body shook with silent tears. I'm going to go see it. The governess locks herself in her room at night. I can sneak out and be back before breakfast, 1024 said, sitting up on the edge of the bed. Are you crazy? 1045 hissed in the dark. You would never make it out there in the dark, especially alone. No way you make it to the fence. I know. 1045, I was hoping you would come with me. You're faster and stronger. I mean, if I convinced my partner to go with me to the mines, I would want to see it. You stupid, 1016 screamed before her outrage was muffled by a hand. You're going to wake her up. Do you want to get caned again? 1045 asked. She has a point. If it wasn't for me, your fine ass would be a top prize for a fodder marriage. Hell, you might even catch the eyes of a normie and get to keep your kids. You are not saying what I think you're saying, 1016 said. Yeah, you're hot, babe. 1045 replied, sliding out of her bunk, sitting on the edge. She shoved her feet into her sneakers. You know damn well what I mean. You're not really thinking of going, are you? 1016 said, grabbing her arm. You heard 1024. I'll be back by breakfast. I'll escort you to the mine myself, 1045 said, stealing one last kiss. 1024's eyes lit up with excitement. Thunder shook the dilapidated shack as light flashed in the window, illuminating their sunken faces. At least the storm will cover our escape and light up the path, well, for a few seconds at least. Tucking the blanket around 1016, she snuck over to the door, pulled it open slowly. She popped her head out. Giving the hallway a sweeping glance, she motioned for 1024 to follow. Tiptoeing down the hallway, she avoided all the loud squeaky spots. On a good day, 1045 liked to hit every spot to annoy the governess, although she suspected the governess knew this. Pausing at the door, 1024 tapped her arm. Just over the gate and a quick peek, okay? You're not scared, are you, 1024? You were so tough in your bed, weren't you? If you want to see the mines, we need to go inside, she said, grabbing the taper candle and the matches out of the storage cupboard. Pressing one into 1024's hand, she squeezed her fingers around it. I'm not scared, I'm scared. 1045 finished for her. Me too. But I need to see where it is I'm condemning 1016. Okay. Well, that was a low blow. I was just too scared to go alone. Slipping past 1045, she snuck across the damp, sandy ground. 1045 pulled the door closed. Sneaking over to the gate, she gave it a tug. The tall iron gate was 10 foot tall. It surrounded the whole complex. The gate didn't give. Sighing, she put her hands on her hips and looked up at the gate. We have to go over, she said wordlessly, miming her hands to 1024. Handing her candles off, 1045 grabbed the fence. The rain made her hand slip on the metal. Giving her one last cautionary glance, 1045 hopped up on the fence. Holding her breath, 1024 watched her climb to the top. Pausing at the small round loops at the top, 1045 reached her hand out and touched it. A crimson river rushed down her arm, the rainwater mixing with blood. Scurrying down, hopping off the fence, her sneakers splashed in the mud. Don't touch the top, she warned, looking at the pink meaty insides of her finger. A scream burst from the mines, followed by the deafening sound of wings. Waving her hand in haste, 1045 looked around the field. Hurry up, we have to get to cover, she whispered. Gulping, 1024 jumped onto the fence. Climbing to the top, she slung one leg over, being mindful of the twist. A howl hit a crescendo, ending in a splat, not a kilometer from them. Faintly, 1024 could hear whimpering. Frozen in fear, she squinted her eyes into the darkness. Mother Nature answered her pleas, lighting up the night with a crack of purple light. The mangled body of a man sprawled out in the wastelands, his arm bent at odd angles, bones protruding from his elbows. Cackling laughter filled the night. Swooping from the sky, the white wings shone in the dark. From a distance, it looked like an angel descending from heaven to ease his pain. 6 gray tentacles wriggled beneath the tattered gown the fiend wore. Slithering across the ground, squeals escaped from its throat. Moaning in the mud, the man's broken body was no longer attuned to this world. As if her legs were made of cement, 1024 watched from her perch. 3 more tendrils flew from the sky, their skeletal head gleaming in the starlight. Opening their mouth, razor-sharp teeth lined the 145-degree angle. The slimy tentacles wrapped around the man, bringing his body to their mouth. In a second, the man was reduced to a blood stain in the dirt. Chunks of organ and bone littered the ground. Barking like a raptor, the group of monsters flew back into the mine. When the coast was clear, 1024 climbed down on shaky legs. 1045's face was pale. Trembling eyes glued to the entrance. Do you still want to go in there? 1024 asked, praying to whoever might be listening that they could go back to their beds. beds that seemed much softer and warmer after this adventure. No. No way we could ever make it in there. We can't. It's not. Extending a shaky hand, she gripped 1024. Pulling her into a hug, she cried into her shoulder, "Let's go home. Maybe you and 1016 will be grouped into the same parish." Patting her shoulder, 1024 broke free. Touching the fence, she let out a yelp. Electricity pulsed through her arm. Eyes wide in horror, she silently sought words that wouldn't come. The fence. I don't know what to call it. It hurt me. It what? Reaching her own hand out, 1045 recoiled in pain. What did they do to the fence? How come it can cause so much pain? Stealing her movement, clicking sounds echoed from the mines. The beating of wings stole her breath. Squinting into the dark, the figures emerged, flying in circles. They surrounded the girls. "Where can we hide? We're stuck in the open. What do we do?" 1024 shrieked, clinging to 1045. Eyes locked onto the sky. Bending down and grabbing a rock, she hurled it back at the house. The window shattered, glass falling over the yard. Screaming, she scooped up another rock and threw it into another window. Squealing, the tendril launched itself below. Pushing 1024 out of the way, 1045 dunked. The unholy sounds erupted from the skull face was haunting. Electricity humming through its body, the smell of burning meat filled the air. "Take that, you fuckers!" 1045 screamed, throwing rocks at the writhing figure. One of the massive wings twisted in the fence, securing the capture. Going limp, the tentacles twitched one last time. Laid out in the mud, 1024 couldn't look away from the scene. The image was burned deeper than her brain. She feared it marred her very soul. The rickety door swung open. The governess ran across the yard, rain beating down, plastering her brown hair to her forehead. She flipped open a small box. Punching the code, she flung the gate open. "Hurry, girls! Inside with you! What were you thinking?" Waving them in frantically, her face contorted with rage. Pulling 1024 up from the mud, 1045 drug her inside. Falling down onto the ground, they panted, holding on to one another tightly. Jamming the code back in, she flipped the box closed. A chorus of clicks rang out from above their heads. Swooping in, a tendril hit the barrier. Lighting up orange, the grid disappeared into the dark. Barking and clicking, they flew over the boarding house. "Inside, now!" the governess screamed. Retreating back into the house, she pulled the door to. "Onto the discipline bench, both of you." Going down the hallway, she slipped into her room. Kneeling on the wooden bench, they waited for the governess to return, their knees cramping from kneeling. Sunlight began to shine into the room. The sun had fully crested the hill when the door to the governess room opened. In unison, their stomachs growled. The smell of porridge floated down the hallway. Smacking a thick wooden pole on the desk, the girls jumped. "I want to know what on earth happened last night," she said curtly. "It was my idea. I wanted to see what the mines were like before graduation day. I made 1024 come with me. I threatened her if she didn't," 1045 replied. "What?" 1024 asked. A sharp whack on the bench next to them made her jump again. "I only want the truth. Is her story wrong?" the governess asked, leaning into her ear, hissing. "No, this is true. 1024 is just afraid of getting in trouble. You both will be getting 50 lashes on the soles of your feet. I have asked the council what punishment is fitting the crime. We won't have windows for winter thanks to your outing. I want you to count each one. If you pass out, we will start again." Bringing down the wooden rod, she struck the soles of their feet. Screaming, they shouted, "1!" in unison. Each time the rod smacked their feet, they screamed. Lashing 30, they lost their voices. Slumping over on the desk, sweating, they whispered each number onto the table, bite marks marking their forearms, trying to keep conscious. 50, they whispered. The soles of their feet were purple and black. The skin was split open, blood dripping into the floor. "Go get dressed. It's almost time for graduation. I'll hand down the sentence before." Backing off the desk, they stood to leave. Pain exploding, they fell onto the floor, the torn nightgown soaking up the blood. Looking down at them over her nose, the governess snorted. If Zero can pull herself around on the floor, so can you. Spinning on her heel, she left the room. 1038 poked her head around the corner. It's clear. Come on, she whispered, waving 1016 into the hallway. Putting an arm around their shoulders, they limped back to their room, collapsing into the bunk. 1016 covered 1045 in kisses, tears smearing all over her face. You came back to me. You better get dressed. I don't want to know what the missus will do if you're not dressed when she gets back, Zero called from her mat. Having the decency to look guilty, she fingered her blanket. Pushing the door open, the governess tried her best to look menacing. The blue bruise marking her cheek broke the facade. 1024, 1045, follow me. Dropping onto the floor, they pulled themselves behind the governess. Seated around the table were men, dressed in suits. They had never seen a suit before. They looked fancy, like something from a book. 1045, the governess tells me that you convinced this girl to go with you into the mines and broke 2 windows. Is this correct? He said, regarding her as if she were shit on his shoe. Yes, sir, it's true, 1045 said, looking at the floor, looking at 1024 from the corner of her eye. When she opened her mouth to speak, she elbowed her in the ribs. Why would you tell him that? It was my idea, 1024 whispered. I can't let 1016 go there, and she will. She will follow me to hell if you have the chance. A fodder family? I have no chance. I can't do that. Not even to avoid the mines, 1045 said, tears running into the floor. 1045, do you know how much a window cost? More so on this moon? He droned on. No, don't answer that. I doubt a pitiful creature such as you has ever seen money, but still, a debt must be paid. I'm afraid you won't be graduating. You are sentenced to death. Governess, show 1045 outside. 1024, if what she says is true, you're free to go. The Humanity Advancement Initiative will be happy to have a woman such as you to provide children for our futures. The front line will thank you. Well, in 16 years. Laughing to himself, he pushed back from the table. I'll be in the classroom when you return for the sorting. Turning her attention to 1045, the governess kicked her in the butt. Outside, she barked. Crawling on her hands and knees, she made her way to the front door. Crunching over the broken glass as it bit into her hands and knees, she fell onto her belly. Pulling herself out the door, 1045 gasped when she saw the tendrils waiting for her on the other side of the gate. The body from the dead beast was no longer caught in the fence. Red-stained white feathers were all the evidence left. Pulling herself through the dirt, a red trail followed her to the gate. Halting, the governess typed the code into the path. The gate swung open. The tendrils clicked and barked excitingly as they waited for her to come out. Slinking along like a slug, 1045 inched through the gate. Tentacles shot out, wrapping around her wrist. With a yank, the tendrils pulled her through the gate. Opening its mouth, it bit through her arm. Falling into the dirt, she screamed. Finding a new voice, blood spurted from her missing limb. Waving it in front of her face, red sprayed the exposed skulls of the tendrils. Lacing up her thighs, it pulled her leg to its face. The tendrils' teeth chomped down air when another beast pulled her away. Biting her waist, ripping her stomach out, eyes glazing over, she watched the monsters eat her organs. Dropping her into the ground, she bounced, burying their faces in her abdomen. They feasted. Her eyes drifted to the window. She saw 1016 looking on. Hand covering her chest, she leaned on 1038. Pulling the gate back with a clink, the governess made her way inside. 1024 had been too scared to watch the scene unfold. Still kneeling on the floor, she shook. Better hurry up. You wouldn't want to miss graduation. You might have to join your friend. Stepping on her fingers as she passed, the governess smiled as she retreated from the room. Come on, girls. It's time. I guess sometimes not knowing what the future has in store is better. Until next time, happy hauntings.